This is the full kind of over-explained, down and dirty, technical, whatever to the city building. What is going on, YouTube? Dr. Way here, and welcome back to Doc's Den. Hey man, I got a super special, I mean incredible video for you folks today. I want to make my attempt, and I am going to say attempt, on a city planning guide. My goal is that I kind of teach you the basic about how to get high yields on tiles, adjacencies, rural and urban tiles, talk about wonders, and maybe a little bit more. This game can sometimes be quite complicated, and I think this is really the core of the kind of technical gameplay experience, building the city, turning it into something, as they say, you believe in. All right, now. So I've actually created a test environment for you folks today, so I can load the game, city plan guide, load her up. And my goal was I didn't want to choose a character that did anything crazy. And then I also didn't want to choose a civilization that had a building, but I ended up doing that anyway. But we're not even going to talk about sales specific buildings because I want to tailor it to, okay, anybody. Take the special stuff out of it. How do you build a city with the base stuff? And then maybe I'll make guides about how to incorporate the Civ into that. Okay. So the first part of building the city is just evaluating the terrain. I'm not personally a big fan of moving my city more than one tile or one turn, using one more than one turn. Mainly because you're losing production, five production at least, five food at least, five all that stuff at least when you move. So I'm a big advocate of, if the first tile is decent, or one tile next to it is decent, just settle there. That's my philosophy. Everybody will tell you something different. Okay. And then the first part about the tiles is fresh water. These blue tiles, when you have the settler or founder pulled up, the first thing you're going to see is like yellow, red, blue. The blue means these are the best spots statistically to put your city at for the most part, and mainly because these tiles give you fresh water, and that the fresh water gives you, well, it doesn't actually give you a buff, but not settling on fresh water gives you a -5 happiness debuff for that settlement. For your first city, that's super important. The fresh water is so important because the palace, when you make the city, is going to give you +5 happiness, and that's how you start working towards getting your social policies. So if you don't start on fresh water, you're not earning anything yet, and then you have to like build out to it. That's a huge disadvantage. That's more of a disadvantage than you think, and I really want to emphasize that, and that's why I'm spending a lot of time on that. So definitely 100% you need to settle on fresh water. That's the first part of evaluating it. The next part is that different buildings have adjacencies depending on what type of building type. So I'll kind of go over that. So for mountain tiles, any adjacent tile next to a mountain is going to give you plus 1 on culture and happiness building. So happiness will give buildings give you +1, culture will give you +1 additional, in addition to the base yields of the the building. Now the other one is the coast and navigable rivers. Like, so this river here is a minor river, not navigable. And you can look this stuff up in the Civpedia. So you're only going to get, in this case, the only adjacency I got right now that I see is these two tiles, and that's because this coastal tile, this water tile, is next to it. There's no bonus for the navigable rivers, and that's for food, and gold buildings benefit from being next to coast or, as I like to call them, navigable rivers. And then the last adjacency, and which I think is the most important one, is for your production, military, and food. Not food. Military production and science buildings get an adjacency for resources. So there's two resources here. So this one is adjacent to two. So that's going to be +2 on science and production. So this is a really, really good tile. If you can, two is usually the best you can most of the time do. Sometimes you get lucky and can get three, but those are usually far and in between. So if you're looking evaluating this particular area, this spot is pretty good, and I feel like Civ 7 does a pretty good job of making sure that the tile that you start on is generally okay. Sometimes the mountains are usually kind of tricky. A lot of times you may not get the mountain, but you'll usually get everything else. Sometimes the coastal rivers is tough, but most of the time you get that too. It's usually the mountain that you get shafted on for the most part. And then there's a extra special thing that's a consideration is that, and we'll get into this later, is that all of these tiles around the city center can be worked. That's very relevant because the palace gets adjacency bonuses for quarters. See, +1 culture for each adjacent quarter, +1 science for each adjacent quarter. Very, very, very good. Okay, so when you build two buildings adjacent to the palace, you're gonna get, this a fairly big buff, especially if you start, working all of them. So if you can, you want to have at least 4, preferably 5. A lot of times you can't get 6, all 6 hexes around the city center. But if you can at least get 4, I think that's generally pretty good. 5 is what you should realistically be looking to get. And me personally, I would feel comfortable settling here, but I think that I would prefer to settle on this tile here just because it'll be a little bit easier to get my library up and running, because then I don't have to build anything else. I can go straight from the library here. So like, I think that I have to waste a turn to do that, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with using 1 turn. So I think this is the best spot for me personally. So then I settle on the next turn, and then I've already talked about the mods. If you haven't watched my mod videos of the mods that I use, I highly recommend that. This is how you can plan out your city with these map tags. You can do a lot before you even get started in the game, and if you do the legwork early, you're running the game on straight easy mode autopilot from there, really, as far as the city planning is concerned. Okay, so first thing that I would do always is get a scout, because you want to have more information. Then a lot of times what I like to do is just move 1 tile away, making sure that I can still search on that turn. So then I'm getting more information. So I'm like, oh, so then I have 2 tiles that's +2. That's really good. And I'll explain that in a second, because we're going to get into the buildings here soon. And then I'm seeing like, okay, this one has 2 coasts. So now the coast is looking a little bit better. There's also mountain here, but I also have 2 mountains there. 2 mountain adjacencies there. And then now I'll do a search to get a little bit more information. So now this particular tile is looking real juicy for the coast. Real juicy. That's big boy adjacencies for sure. For coast tile. Okay. So now there's some golden rules, tips, advice, call it what you want. When it comes to building the cities. The first one I would say, and I've already talked about it, is the palace adjacency. You really want to be putting your buildings on inside of this first ring, if you can, because it's going to give your palace a super huge boost to its culture and science, which is how you really unlock the other stuff, a lot of the stuff in the game. Now, this only accounts for the palace. This does that does not hold true for any other settlement that you have in the game because they're not palace. They don't have the palace as a city center. It's different. It's just for the palace, which is only in your capital city. I really want to make that distinction. The second thing that you want to do is that you generally speaking want to put your warehouse buildings within this first ring as well. And that's just because the warehouses buildings don't have adjacencies. Like they don't have any of those mountain, coast, or resource adjacencies. So the only adjacency that you can really get with those is the palace. But the good part about that is that the warehouse bonuses are activated just naturally. So like for this one, the granary, you get the +1 food base yield, and then all the farms in this city get that bonus. It doesn't have to be like next to it or anything like that. Okay, that's the kind of the second rule. Because of that, you really don't want, and this kind of go into the third one, you really don't want wonders in your first ring. And that's just because then that will be taken away from the palace adjacency and kind of the thought process of trying to get as much yield out of that adjacency. And it doesn't seem like much at first, but I promise you, it really ramps up. It really, 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 really ramps up. So you want to try to build the wonders on that second or third ring. That was really what you should be looking to do. And then as far as like the order of the buildings, you really want to prioritize the production first. Production is king in this game. If you don't have high production, you're going to have a very difficult time getting out buildings, getting out settlers, and building your empire. Food, I would say, is the second most important because you really need the food in order to grow the city, to work more tiles, to put the buildings up, to get the production. So kind of like the production and food. In some cases, I may prioritize food a little bit over the production, depending on how much food I can get. I mean, I think that in the early part of the game, food is a little bit more important. So 3 or 4 food early is definitely better than 1 production for the first 20 turns. I believe so. Some people may disagree, but I think most people would generally agree that 3 food is better than 1 production. And then after that, you kind of got your science influence, culture, and gold are. It depends on who you're playing, but generally speaking, they're kind of all around in that same tier. Some people value influence because influence is quite difficult to get. Hence why I play Greece a lot because you get +3 influence on the palace. And let me turn the yields on here so you can see those. I probably should have done that earlier. Okay, so now and then I think happiness is important, but it's kind of the least important. A lot of times I'm only really addressing happiness when I really need to. When my city is low happiness, because a lot of these buildings do have a maintenance cost. It's gold and happiness. Gold buildings don't only need happiness, and happiness buildings only need gold, but all the other buildings need both. So you usually only are addressing happiness when you have low happiness. All right, so now let's get into some of the adjacencies. So I'll pull up the map tags here. So I'll do this. I'll pull up I think a good thing to do is to show you all of the buildings that can be built. I made this little thing before map tags even came out to kind of give me a little bit more guidance, but you have two uh you have 2 food buildings, you have 3 gold buildings, but you really have 2 because the ancient bridge only really allows river crossing, so you only really build it if you really need to. So essentially 2. You have 2 not library 2 science buildings, 2 production buildings, and this is for the antiquity age. You have 2 uh culture buildings, You have three happiness buildings, but really, you really only have two, because even though the altar does count as a happiness building, it only gets adjacencies from wonders, so you're usually not too concerned about it. And a lot of, and after the age, you get rid of it and replace it with something else anyway. So as far as and then the happiness you get is only +2, so you're really only looking at the villa in the arena. How I really look at it, this is more of like the religious building. So because of that, because of how the tech trees work, you normally get, like, you get the garden, and then I think you get the bath and the market at the same time, but then you may have the garden already, so then you throw down the market. So most of the time, since food and gold have the same adjacency, you kind of want to put like a food and a gold building together. You put the library and the barracks usually go together. The academy and blacksmith go together. The monument and villa go together. Sometimes I don't even build the amphitheater in the arena, but those typically go together if you are going to build them. And then normally the two of these warehouse building, the granite, usually a granary, and then either the saw pit or the brickyard go together. And then that's a good segue kind of into that, is that the fishing quay and the granary are the two food warehouse buildings. So we can talk about warehouses a little bit. And these are ageless; they're permanent. Once you place them down, you can't get rid of them. You're stuck. They're there for the rest of the game through all of the ages. So you really want to make sure that that building in particular is in the right spot. And more so that it's not in the wrong. I mean, in the spot that something else really should be in. So normally, if you're on a more land-based, uh, in a more land-based city, you're going to put the granary down. If you're doing more of that naval ocean lifestyle, you're going to use the fishing quay. And then you're going to pretty much either choose the brickyard or the saw pit. If if you think that you're going to have more mines and quarries, clay pits, mines and quarries, then put the brickyard down. If you feel like you're going to benefit more from the camps and woodcutters, you're going to throw that down. How do you know that? We're about to get into it right now and solve the puzzle. That's what I really want to point out, is that this is just a puzzle that you have to solve. So now let's go play Sudoku. Sudoku. What is it, Sudoku? I don't know, but we're going to solve the puzzle. Amen. So, like I said, I'm most concerned. The first building I'm probably going to throw down technologically is going to be the library. And you have to build the buildings with, buildings are urban tiles. In order to throw down an urban tile, it has to be connected to a palace, city center, or another urban tile. So the only buildings that I can build right now are these 5 tiles here. You can never build on resources. So these are going to be stuck as whatever they are. You can't do nothing with these. You can't remove them or nothing. You're stuck with them. So obviously this is going to go here because you want the +2. Then after that, you want to try to get the production down so these kind of go together, because with the order of the tech tree, that's how you get them. The only spot that you can really put the happiness and culture buildings are here. So it's either going to go here or here. This is the best food and gold tile. So I kind of want to build out this way. So I'll go ahead and throw, it doesn't matter, the garden or bath. Let's say I will, because the garden comes early. Let's say I put that there. It is worth noting that the bath does need to be on a river to get that 10% growth rate. You definitely want that in your capital. No, I made a mistake. Scratch that. I'm going to exit that out. So what we actually want to do is since this is the mountain, we actually want to put the culture building here. We get the monument first, and then the monument and the villa basically go together, because sometimes you don't even want to overbuild this in the next age because it's really hard to get influence. So you got this +3 influence for relatively low. It's just -4 gold and -2 happiness because this is only takes gold to maintain. So that it's really good influence for the cost. And then this actually ends up being +2 influence in the next age. So it's actually 4 influence for very low cost. It's actually pretty legit. So now, correction, we can actually now throw down the better spot for the market and the garden. So that definitely means now that since the bath needs to go onto the river, that it has to go there. Great. So now we're kind of left with just this tile here in terms of the other culture and happiness building. So if I wanted to do that, boom, it's going there. If I do that, because a lot of times I don't even decide to build these buildings. A lot of times I don't, but they would go here. Okay, and then I know what some people may be thinking, like, this needs to be on a rough tile. Yes, I know that, but I'm not going to include these buildings. I'm not factoring that into my decision making. Okay, so that would mean that this right here is kind of like the only tile that's, I'm not going to call it a dead tile. Some people like to call them dead tiles, but it's a tile. It's a tile where it doesn't have any like inherent adjacency bonus besides for the palace. This one would be that too, but no, because it has the river, so you want to put the bath there. So this would be the ideal candidate to throw down your warehouse building. So first thing you may do would be the granary. The reason why you're doing that, okay, you're building out with the rule tiles. You want to get the plantation, this plantation first, this other plantation. You may get the dye, so that's the fishing quay. You're gonna probably then go towards the salt. You're probably gonna get this mine and that mine. So let's throw down a mine here. And then after that, you're probably gonna go to the infantry iron. So that's also a mine. So right now, early on, you're looking at 2 plantations, 2 mines. So just off of these resources and then building these, it looks like you're gonna do, you're all about mines and you're all about farms, plantations, pastures for right now. So then the granary and the brickyard seems to be the winning choice. Although you do have a lot of trees around, just from what I kind of just went through and what I'm going to be working, it really does look like it's going to be the granary and the brickyard are going to be the winners right now. Okay, so then this is kind of most of it. And then if you want to just kind of round it out and finish it off, well, okay, now the blacksmith and the academy will be going there. Good yield. And then I'm not really missing any other buildings. The lighthouse is actually pretty good just because it allows you to have more resources in the settlement. That's actually very good for your capital. And then it has to be built on the coast. Right here would only be a 1 adjacency. We can do far better than that. We can go here and that'll be 6. So you would want to build that out here. And then I think the only other building that can be paired with it right now is the fishing quay. But unless you're really planning on seriously investing into these boats, you can kind of not even do it. Like I was saying, like the granary is kind of going to be the bread, but I would put the lighthouse down. And then in the next age, there is 2 buildings you can put together. One replaces the lighthouse, and then there is another building that you can throw down in there. So that's kind of how you would do it. This is the full kind of over explained, down and dirty, technical, whatever to the city building. And then now, I think what might be appropriate is just to kind of go through how you would do that. Like I'm gonna show you not in real time. I'm probably gonna just fast forward, speed it up a little bit and kind of play some lobby music so you can you can see how that's done. So give me a second and enjoy the show. Okay. So I definitely used um my cheat panel to kind of steam through this, but generally speaking, and I did go very, very, very quickly, but generally speaking, I pretty much did exactly what I would have done for the most part, with a few minor exceptions. Pretty much did what I would have done if I was playing like a normal game, and I tried to build a couple of settlements. I didn't turn them into cities or anything like that because it would have took far too long to do that. But as you can see here, the yields I'm getting is actually okay for it to be like a one city type of a build. I'm getting like sevens. I did one specialist on the center here, just so you can kind of get an idea of like what the yields you know can look like. So here you go, and then I may actually make this the thumbnail here. Zoom in. Let me get it. Let me get it extravagant here, and we'll see you in the next one. Hopefully you enjoy. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, but only if you enjoyed, amen. And we'll see you in the next one.